Would you please tell me about your background?
I grew up in a smallish town in Oregon. My mom is a weaver. My father makes paintings. Very creative household. Went from there to Seattle, where in my 20s I danced and I made custom knit work.
My background's kind of unconventional. I did start off not knowing any art. From where I'm from, it's mostly medical based and religious community. And after high school, I didn't know what I want to major in, so I just dabbled in everything and I found art.
I consider my background, like including all the experience I had since I was a child. Many of them are faded, so only when I think back, coming today, I treasure all the things that I've been through.
My background is that I'm a graphic designer. I teach graphic design at Woodbury University. My undergrad is from Cal State Northridge, and I've always been a graphic designer since I graduated from Cal State Northridge.
I was born and raised in Southern California. I was brought up in a Montessori school where I was first introduced to ceramics and wood shop and foods class and that kind of thing. And now I do ceramics as a grown-up.
I graduated in the Indiana University Bloomington as a chemistry student, and I worked for a lab for 2 years. At the same time, I've been an art editor for adult magazines, and finally I find it out my creativity makes me go to choose the graphic design for my master.
I am a graphic designer, but I also consider myself a little bit of like all the way around artist. I also do like to make things and just a lot more like tangible, but graphics has been pretty much my career for the past 20 years or so. Yeah.
I was maybe at the age of 10 or so, and I used to paint my bedroom walls. Then I would get bored again and I would repaint them white. My mother used to always be so upset with me, telling me, "What are you doing? We're living in an apartment, like they're gonna charge me extra." I said, "It's fine, I'll paint it the next day." And I would go ahead and the next week, I would go ahead and paint a completely new different thing. I am a well-rounded artist. I don't really like to limit myself.
So at the age of 19, I started getting into the art world and found myself liking it, loving it, and having professors encouraging me about pursuing that type of career.
I grew up in China and I moved to United States about 14 years ago. So for me, I'm experiencing the two political system. Well, it's not hugely has like a direct conflict with me as an individual with those systems, but I'm affected by it, such as the education I received in China compare the one I received in America, and the social environment, the mentality, the group of people, that those all has like a little by little impact on me.
And I do a lot of corporate, nonprofit, a lot of logo design, publication design, but I'm here getting my MFA. I want to kind of branch out and work on some social justice graphic design.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's all.
What does being creative mean to you?
I think to me, creativity is about articulation. So basically, it doesn't matter what field you're in, but knowing where you're coming from, what you're trying to say, and allowing yourself the space to maybe say that in a way that is unique to your perspective.
Being creative means to me kind of like a salvation when it comes to having art in your life. I've had it where one instance I couldn't do art for about 6 months, and it just made me feel weird. I have to say, it made me feel like something's missing.
I thought about this question. So being creative, I would think of it as from like a two aspect of creativity. One is the creativity I think everyone possesses. We all very creative, and behind that creativity, the driving force is our urge to express ourselves. So either through speaking or writing or just draw something. So in that sense, everyone is creative, and the stronger you want to express yourself, you will do more about it.
I think everybody really is creative, and I think that creativity, for me, if I'm cooking something, if I'm trying a new recipe, that's creative. Or if I'm even rearranging my studio, that's creative. You know, I think there's a lot of creativity in things that we all do day to day.
I guess being creative means being able to express your inner thoughts and try and get, try to survive off of trying to reproduce those thoughts for the community and outwards to society, and hopefully they're positive thoughts and positive things that you're trying to push out towards the community.
Being creative is chasing myself. I think I always do something really new, but at the same time, I also like to be really traditional. Like, I'm doing the graphic design and I deal with computers every day, but at the same time, I also enjoy the time on draw by painting by hand, drawing by watercolors, and sometimes acrylic painting.
Being creative, well, the way that I approach some of my work, whatever project it is, whether if it's a graphic design project or if it's branding or, create like starting from scratch or just starting with an existing template, I like to do a little bit of research about whatever I'm working on. Just because I do feel like graphic, to an extent, it's kind of a form of storytelling, and that's the way that I approach a lot of my work.
Being creative means a lot to me. It's a way of expressing myself. It's a way of like getting inside my mind and just letting all those thoughts. I think of it as like working out because I love working out as well. So when I work out, it's kind of you're forgetting about everyone else and you're focusing on yourself. So this is my way of kind of focusing on myself.
So I work in fiber art, which means I tend to make very physically based work, as I come from dance and I come from this yoga and this whole culture of moving your body and being aware of your body. And so my work tends to often use bodies or use space in a way that is very physical. And that's what coming specifically from me. But creativity goes. You can be creative as a teacher. You can be creative in a million ways, so long as you know what you're trying to say.
And I feel like for most artists, especially for myself, it's a part of you. It's a part of me, and even if I am not in this profession, even if I don't become like the most recognized person in the world, I will still be doing art, because it's what Henry Moore says, you can't retire from art. It's part of you.
Another aspect of it, I thought that's a higher level to reach the creativity that's, I would put in words like outside of the structure. So what is the structure? The structure is that we live in, like either the social structure or our education structure, our knowledge, the structure of our knowledge. So the creativity, I consider those type of creativity is being educated. So being educated is foundation that we know all the edges of our structure. And once we know that structure, we kind of find our way to touch the edge. And then from that point, when you see where is the boundary, then when you stand, you can see it. First, you have to be able to see it. Once you see it, you can stand on it and launch yourself from there. So that's the type of creativity. It has to be trained over the time and also depend on people's ability to perceive things.
Creativity for me is trying to bring an unexpected idea, I think, to solve a visual problem. For me, it's always a visual problem. Graphic designers are quote-unquote visual problem solvers. So creativity for me is trying to do something that that maybe I haven't thought of. Not that there really is any originality, in the world, but something that is new for me, I guess.
Being creative to me is doing that, trying to, for me, getting the thoughts in my mind out and not on paper. And I don't sing and I don't dance, so I work with my hands and I work with earthy materials and I work with things that I know will eventually deteriorate and disintegrate. And being creative to me is I think that's what it is.
I love to drawing by watercolors and acrylic painting. This is not really related to graphic design, but this is the inspiration for that, and this is what I want to say about chasing myself.
We are kind of like a voice for whoever you're working with. So I like to have like a good understanding of what it is that they're trying to translate or convey, so that gets that point gets across through the work that I'm creating for that person or that project.
What kind of creative patterns, routines, or rituals do you have?
I do a lot of materials studies. So I'll have a project, either a project that needs to happen for another collaboration or a project that I just feel like doing, and I'll find a material and then I'll just start to play with it and see what happens. And basically it's a lot like sketching, but little bitty things, then get into bigger things. Very time-based. I spend a lot of time, do a lot of recording of what I'm doing.
I think for the most part, my routine is being interested in the initial thing. So whether it's the medium or the subject or even related to the artwork or art world, maybe it doesn't even have to relate to that, society or maybe even food. You never know what it will inspire you. So my routine is get inspired first by whatever it means. And then from there, I like to sleep on it. I want to say sleep on it, but it takes time for me to figure out what I want to do with that idea.
I like the word ritual. I burn incense and I kowtow towards the east. Well, that's a joke.
I procrastinate. That's kind of a pattern. And then so I'm percolating while I'm procrastinating, I think,
I don't want to sound lazy, but a creative ritual I think that I have is one where I sit and just marinate with my thoughts. And once I do get some type of imagery, or if I'm curious about some idea, I sit with that idea and I let it organically grow. And if it blooms into me creating something and bringing that thing to fruition, then it does. But there are a lot of ideas and whatnot that, they come and they go just as fast as they came.
To a graphic designer, to create an artwork is not just by yourself, but you have a client. Sometimes the client has really bad thinking, but you need to try to challenge them, I think, and to get the balance between the client and your self-ego.
Consider myself like a super visually stimulated kind of designer. So I like to look a lot of like just tangible stuff like articles and labels, and I'm just like drawn to billboards and just art, anything that inspires me.
I really don't have any rituals or patterns. I think what I like to do is just separate myself from the world, from society, and just kind of focus on my art. I like to have that mindset of like being focused, being determined, creating this creature, this like my child that I call it.
I do have a real particular ritual that helps me, and it's going to sound a little typical maybe, or maybe unnecessary, but I really love to straighten up my studio before I start. I don't always get the luxury of doing that. It takes time to do that. But in the end, I really just love that idea of touching all those materials and being respectful to them and organizing them in a way that is almost maybe like a surgeon that's getting ready to do major surgery on something. And it really calms me down.
Unfortunately, usually after the fact, I will record it. It would be more handy if I did it during. Sometimes I forget. But since I'm working in physical materials, it's usually pretty doable to go back and figure it out later.
Ritual, that's the word, like connect to spiritual. And I think doing art itself is a spiritual activity. It's the time when I'm being able to connect with myself and understand myself. So the pattern, I don't know. I don't have a routine. I wish I have a routine, but I don't. I make stuff when I'm clicked with something that I was reading, or some photo I took, or when I see something happen. Yeah, so it depends.
Usually also I'll clean off the kitchen surfaces, clean the crumbs off of the countertops, or I'll, like file something that I haven't filed in years. I procrastinate, okay? And then when I finally have to get going on it, that's when I start. So it's probably not a very good answer, but that's typically how I work, under pressure.
But the ones that I sit and marinate on, those are the ones that I'm practicing now with my working on my thesis with entropy. And now everything that I see and everything that I'm working with, I intertwine entropy into my regular life and anyone's regular life that's speaking to me.
So for the routine, at first we have a really brief question for the client, and then I go over the questions, thinking about how they like, how they want, to check the adjective they give to us, and then I have brainstorming about this, and then I will just throw this out, and then go to draw a watercolor.
I like to do a lot of visual research. So I like to look at magazines, billboards, I don't know, anything from labels and like packaging to like things to draw inspiration from, just to kind of get my mind going and just to look at different kind of styles or trends that might be like people are kind of following or doing that I can kind of imitate a little bit through my work.
When I read your question about the disparity in the art world between men and women on that, I got so upset when I read it in your email because, you know, there are always like a number of ways to approach this. The one I've typically done is just to barrel through. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to focus on my work. I'm not going to get distracted by the fact that inequality exists. But on the other hand, of course I get upset and angry about it. And it arises in so many ways, in a daily way, and also in a broader career sense. You see those, you know, unequal playing fields. So when I read your question about that, there was a part of me that wants to root you on and say, I know you can do that if you really set your determination. And then a part of me that knows that it's a real struggle. It's a very slow change, and sometimes things seem to change and then they seem to step back. So I try to be realistic about it, but I always felt that hard work was really going to get me somewhere, and that was going to be the idea. Now, I do think if I was imparting advice, I would impart something that I really never did, and what it is that if you get a group of like-minded people together, you have strength in numbers. And I never really took that route. I was really never one to want to join a group, or you couldn't say I was part of one particular place in the art world or another. So as a result, I was always swimming alone a lot. And I think in some ways it made it harder, but it was just the way my personality went with it, right? Because I'm thinking of friends that I have who do kind of work in groups of artists. You know, maybe it's a feminist group, or maybe there are a group of artists that all do figurative work, or there's some relationship between them. And when you have a core group like that, something really happens. When there's exhibits, they tend to help each other in that way. When they are having a down period with the work, they can prop each other up. Maybe they pass along a collector to you. So it's not that I didn't have any of those things with people, but it wasn't like a natural group I was flowing along with. One thing I would say, I'm not even sure it's advice as much as a wish. I always wish that professors, for instance, would give more examples of females when they're talking about art. It's really shocking to me how much the whole system is built on the idea of really excluding female artists. I don't buy it that, you know, if you have like Cindy Sherman, like everybody knows Cindy Sherman's work. It's like, I'm sorry, but Cindy Sherman does not really represent every female artist. And I think that that's kind of how the system organizes it. They think, you know, oh, here's a bone. I'll throw you a bone. Don't you feel a little better about this? But, you know, emerging artists, there's so many wonderful artists out there. And I just think we need, as females also, to give each other a chance. I think sometimes females get very competitive with each other. And it's because there's only one bone that everybody's trying to grab, right? And so I do think that as females, we can also be promoting each other. And I do think we all need to trust each other more generally is what it's about. Because I do see that females make extraordinary work. And it's all often influential. But then you got to tell people that, you know, that they were influenced by this woman's work. It can't be some secret that is like this underground idea.